Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again for School Fish Art Stream. J-Man wants Gatling gun on the end of his tail. Oh my goodness. J-Man says the tail's where you put all the heavy artillery. Yeah. Said he used to have a howitzer on the end of his tail. Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again on this Thursday morning. Now, usually, the Thursday morning School of Fish is just for the Patreon backers, but since I missed Tuesday, I decided it would only be fair to make Thursday public so everybody could get to watch it and everybody could get to take part in this amazing day. I apologize if I'm a little more echoey than I normally am, but I'm moving into my new office space and we're in the process of painting and everything. And God, I've got a gnat in here that's driving me nuts. And got to put up the acoustic tiles and stuff to help deaden some of the echo. But y'all should have seen me this morning. I was putting them up on the ceiling over my head, and then I'm checking stuff to try and see if it's helping with the echo. Falling right. The tape I used apparently wasn't the right kind of tape. Doesn't want to stick to this phone. Stick to anything else, but it won't stick to this phone. So I'm gonna have to try something different. Anyway, I hope everybody's having a good day today. Wait a second for some folks to hop on and get in here. I'm gonna double check on my phone, make sure everything's coming across okay. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Hope everybody has had a good week so far. Man, I can't believe it's already Thursday. Man, we are already through this week. That is nuts. Can't believe it. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to show off and talk about today was something that we mentioned in the last show, and that was some of the techno-textures and stuff that I build myself. Like I showed y'all last week how I make textures for buildings and stuff so that I can knock out background buildings really fast, and they're done in my art style. It looks like I drew it because I did draw it, but it makes it go a whole lot faster that way. And so, all right, what is up, Kyron? Good to see you this morning, man. Apparently my chat overlay's not working. It was working earlier, now it's not working, but I also had to stop and reboot my computer at the last second because all of a sudden my pen wasn't working on the screen. This new setup's going to have some bugs to work out. I can tell right now. But I've had to move everything and rewire everything, and yeah, we're going to get there. But we talked about in the last show doing the buildings and stuff, and I mentioned that I was going to talk about how I do some of these. Oh, no, see, being part of the 99%, and actually I'm probably down like the lower 20% of that. Yeah, I don't have a butler so much. I got kids, but you know, they're unskilled labor at best. But we're going to talk about this texture that I built that I've got all over this ship here, and I just love the way it came out, and I love the way that the original layout of the texture lends itself so well to using your perspective guides and stuff to turn these into deep trenches and raised platforms and things. And let's see, Karen says, your kids have a butler, but you don't? That's so weird. Yeah, I know. Well, you know, in the day of streaming and whatnot, my kids are a lot richer than I am. My kids are working their way up to your 1%. They're not down here with us lowly folks trudging in the dirt for a living, sitting here digging ditches of drawing comic books all day, down in the comic book mines as I am, because, you know, that's how we make comic books. We have to dig them out of the ground with pickaxes. So anyway, we're going to work on this texture, and I liked this texture so much. I had so much fun with it that I ended up using it as like interior wall textures and stuff inside in some of the scenes too, in the background, and I loved the way that came out. And I also used it like in the new issues of the Sentinels that I'm working out to make, because we've always had this generic burn kind of like techno boxes on the wall in the background of the Sentinels headquarters, Freedom Stronghold. That's what it is. And so we've always had that kind of look in the background. And I realized that that texture I made works really well over here. And if I throw some depth and some perspective on it, it suddenly gets really complicated. It looks really cool really quickly. And I dig that. So that's what we're going to be working on. Good morning, Katie. I'm so glad you could join us. I hate that I'm not getting the comments showing up on the side like I should be, but for whatever reason, I'm gonna try it again later, but it ain't working this time. So I'm gonna have to go back to doing it manually, like some kind of butler. All right. The textures are really freaking simple. It is. I'm gonna show you a couple of different ways that I do some textures, and we'll get to the really complicated one in a second. But we're going to start out with a couple of simple ones, just because, just to keep it simple, stupid. Now, I'm going to create a new vector layer because I absolutely want to be working on a vector layer to create this. So for the Chirons and the Sarahs out there that are watching, you absolutely need to be working on a vector layer, 100%. It's going to make this a whole lot easier. Let's see. Chiron says, wait, why don't you have your butler highlight the comments? Again, you don't understand how the rest of us live, Kyron. That's why. I deserve it. I deserve it for all the trash I talked. I absolutely do. I do. All right. I'm going to pick the straight line tool. I am going to come down here and we'll make it 15 for now and look at that and see let's do it 10. We'll do 10 and we'll see how it goes. All right, I got my keyboard over here so I can hold on to it. Sarah's my temporary comment butler on my show. Absolutely. Everybody needs a Sarah to be their comment butler. All right, now let's see. Make sure I'm on the right thing. Got the straight line tool picked, and I am going to draw a straight line across, and I'm holding shift while I do it. And one thing that you can do to make sure that you keep these absolutely the same is I'm going to scoot this over, Control C, Control V, and then hold shift and go down. I didn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that works. Control C, V, shift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C, V, shift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Control C, V, shift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now I'm getting all of those working at the same distance from each other. Let me change. I don't think I have the settings changed on this one. Select by dragging. All right, that's what I want. Okay, and now I'm going to Control C, V, and I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm just going to come down until I get the top and the bottom one to match. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I could grab the whole thing, copy and paste if that's how I want to do it, and hold Shift and the down arrow key and until I get those bottom ones to match, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now they're all like the same distance. Let's see, Karen says, what is the Control CV? It's Control C for copy and then Control V for paste. What is up, Phil? Glad you're here, man. I really appreciate you being here, man. And I really appreciate the fan art you did. It's been fun having you here, man. I'm glad you joined the group, man. All right, I'm gonna move those up a little bit so we can work with it. Got to go soon, but I wanted to stop by and say hi. Man, I appreciate it. Man, thank you. I really, really do. All right. Now I'm going to take this one, this whole group. I'm going to Control C, V. I'm going to hold down the Shift so that, well, wait a minute. Let me get on to, okay, scale and rotate. And I'm going to hold down Shift so that it goes in degrees, and it didn't do. Okay, but what are you doing to space it out? Was that Shift? I'm holding. Okay, let me show you. Just to clarify. All right, I'm gonna click on this one here. I'm gonna copy and paste. It's the new paste one is directly on top of the one that I had there. So you can't really tell that it's moved. I mean, it's right on top, so you can't tell that there's two. Now, if I just hold down, if I just hit the arrow key, it would, I'm on the wrong page. If I just hold down the arrow key, it will move in little notches like that. If I hold down the shift key, it'll go in bigger notches like that. Now, the thing is, the further zoomed out I am, when I hold down shift, the bigger the move is still the same on the screen. It's still moving the same amount, but if I zoom out, it's moving much further on the page. So that's something you have to be careful of because like I can't move some of these 5 clicks down holding the shift key at this zoom. If I zoom in and try and do the same thing, it'll be a much smaller movement. On the screen, each time it's moving the same amount. It's moving the same amount of like pixels on this screen that I'm working on. But however far zoomed in I am, that can be a very different thing. I'm glad I'm glad to be of help. And like I said, if I just hit the arrow key, it'll move. Not on the screen. If I just hit the arrow key, it'll move little bitty amounts. If I hold the shift key, it'll move much larger amounts. And if I hold the control key, it will move. It's usually supposed to be like a little bit less than the normal arrow key. Like usually in most of the programs, arrow key will move stuff so much, controls less, shift is more, like a double jump kind of with the shift. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that one because it's not where I need it to be. And then also, when you have your object tool selected over here, if you come over here to like selectable object and click on that little menu, no, not that one, operation and transparent port, you can click on select by dragging and you can either select control points or objects. And I just really want the objects. So now instead of having to like click and hold shift and click, I could do it this way and hold down shift and click and click. Or I could turn on this little add to selection button over here and click, which is sometimes great. But when I have select area by dragging and you're not seeing it, that's frustrating. Okay. That little menu right there that I'm pointing at, when you click on it, it gives you some options, and one of them is select area by dragging. But the way OBS does this, it's taking just the screen in Clip Studio, and it's not taking what I'm seeing. It's not taking the menus that pop up. But when you click on select area by dragging, select objects by dragging, I can click and drag and select them all. And now I'm going to Control C for copy, Control V for paste. And I'm going to come over here until I get that little rounded arrow so I know I'm going to be rotating. And I'm going to click and I'm going to hold down shift so that it will only rotate it in like, what is it? It's not 15 degrees. It's like 45 degrees is what it is. And so it's moved it there. And then I'm going to stretch this up. All right. And now I have, Now I have a whole bunch of boxes that should be relatively evenly spaced, and they don't look like they are. Somewhere something got off, but that's not the end of the world. Let me grab those. We'll come down just a little bit. Pull up a little better. All right, but anyway, you get the gist of it. And now I'm gonna click on my eraser tool, and like if I just want to make, say, bricks out of this, I could just come and delete every other line and then come down one and delete every other line in an overlapping pattern and then come down and delete every other one. And, real quick, you have a real nice brick pattern. And I have gone to the trouble of making like repeatable brick patterns so that I can pull them in as like when you come up, which y'all aren't going to see it, but when you go to import and then you go to like import from image, you can go down right below that and import a pattern from image. And so I can import that repeatable brick pattern as a pattern from that image that I saved, and it'll just bricks across the whole thing. And I can shrink and rotate that central section of bricks however I want, and the whole page will just be filled full of that brick texture, which just works really great if you want to make just regular bricks. It also works really cool if, say, you want to make some kind of weird techno plates or something, that aren't normal bricks, but you want to have some kind of interesting Tetris like set of plates in your danger room or whatever here. You can do that kind of thing and just delete random lines out of it and end up with a much more interesting texture. Or you could do, like, if you wanted to do, say, a tile pattern made out of like rectangular tiles, you could do something like that and get like an overlapping, like kind of subway floor sort of tile pattern. And all kinds of cool stuff that you could do. And that's just with straight lines going like that. Now, let me show you what we can do with that. Now, we will file and we will export. And I'm going to turn off the background so I can export it as a transparent PNG file. And you can't see this part. I'm going to have to fix that as a transparent PNG. And I'm going to, no, I'm not going to save it there because that's not where I need it right now. Texture 1, which you can't see, I know, but I'm going to fix that coming up very soon. I'm going to save it at high resolution and click OK. And now, okay, that has been exported as a transparent PNG of that texture. Now, say I have, go to the pen tool. I'm on another layer here. Let's say I've laid out this area that I want to put that texture in. I've laid out this area I want to put that texture in. All right. So I've just roughed that out. Okay, I've just roughed out the area that I want that to be in. Now, the problem that I was having the other day when I was trying to just throw in perspective lines to make buildings and they were coming out all kind of wonky is I hadn't really figured out how I wanted the buildings to look, which helps me dictate where the perspective lines need to be. I just kind of freehanded some perspective lines and I ended up with some really wonky buildings. What I always do when I'm doing it for real is I sketch in rough looks for the buildings and then I set my perspective lines off of that. And it comes in much better Sometimes it still needs some fine tuning, but it comes out much better. So I wanted to show that as well. So I've roughed out the perspective for this room that I want to put this in. All right. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to go to my ruler tool and my perspective ruler, and I'm going to basically follow that line where I want it to be and follow that line. And if we're just doing a 1 point perspective like this room is, then that works just fine. I'm going to turn my perspective layer green over here by clicking on that little button right there, and then it gives you drop down menus. I've just picked that perspective is green because perspective is outside and grass is green, and that clicks in my brain, and that works just fine for me. You can do whatever color you want to do. You don't have to use colors. You could label it if you want to. The colors are easier for me to find, and it's quicker than having to stop and type it out. Okay, now I'm going to, I'm not going to turn that off yet. I'm going to come up above this layer. Oh, and the reason that I color this is because sometimes I absolutely want to snap to those perspective lines and sometimes I don't. So I can turn it off really quickly. And I know that the green layer is the perspective layer, the perspective ruler layer. I can just click and turn that off. And now I can draw whatever I want to draw freehand, and I'm not stuck to those perspective lines. And then when I do need to use them again, I can turn it back on. Okay, so I've got the rough layout of what I want my room to look like. I've got my perspective layer. Now I'm going to make a new vector layer and I'm going to draw the room in just because I'm OCD and I want to do this right. So I'm going to come in with a little bit thicker line tool and I'm going to draw these lines in. I'm on a vector layer so I can draw these lines overlapping and I don't have to worry about it because I can come back and erase the parts that I don't need and then come to that cross there. And then I can come in, I'm on the wrong screen with my eraser tool and just click, and everything erases back to the intersection because I have that little part selected right there, erase up to intersection, which is wonderful on vector lines, but it only really works on vector lines. So, okay, we've got this nice little layout here already done. Now I can make it a little more complicated if I want to, and I want to. So I'm going to have a little section come out this way, and I made those lines long so I could cross them easily and not have to worry about it. And then I'm going to come from here. Oh, that's why I make them long. So I don't have to worry about if they hit right, if they're going to be long enough. Okay, now I'm going to come back to my eraser tool, clean it up, and get all those little edges. And I'm going to erase that line and that line and those and those. And it's not perfect, but there. Okay, we've got a little bit of a detailed room there. All right, now I'm going to come in. I'm going to turn off my blue pencil layer. I'm going to turn off my perspective layer. All right, we've got a very simple room laid out, and now we want to apply the textures that we created. I'm going to go to File, and you don't get to see that. I'm going to go to Import. I'm going to go to, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to import the image, and then I'm going to go down to my School of Fish folder where we just saved that, and I'm going to pull up Texture 1 and import it, and it is an image object now, and I have my object select tool set to automatically go to free transform when I click on something because I use it so often. So if we've got several textures on here, we probably wouldn't want to use this with several textures on all this stuff. But for this illustration, I'm going to move this down until it fits roughly over here in this. And now we can come grab these edges and fine tune it and move it around until it lines up with the edges of that wall, because this is the wall that we want to put that texture on. And now I'm making sure that this line matches that line of the wall and this line is straight. Because if it's not straight, then the perspective is going to be off. It's going to be as if the wall was twisted, and we don't want that. And then I'm going to come and tweak this little guy and move him over there, make sure he's right there in the corner. And okay, now we've got that texture on the wall. I'm going to turn that off for a second. I'm going to come in with my selection tool, and I'm going to select this area. I'm going to undo that because I had it set to, I had my area scaling to negative. So when I select in something, it comes in a little bit, which is cool for certain things. I don't want that right now. So now I'm going to come back, select that area. I'm going to turn that texture back on, and I don't want that texture in here. So because I selected just that area for the wall that I want, now I'm going to go to layer mask, and I'm going to say mask outside of the selection. And everything outside of that selected area now gets masked. It's still there, but you can see over here in this little block on the side that it's been masked off. And I love that because it doesn't destroy the image. If I need to change it later, that information is still there. I could turn off the mask and you can see it again. Well, let's see, what can I do? I'm gonna be covering up more of it. Oh, that's not what I want. I want that one. Move that over here. Let's see, is that any better? It's still probably a little low, but let me check properties on that. Is that any better? All right, let me try one more thing. One more thing. Oh, where is that? Found it before. Output. General output. There's so many settings. Trying to figure out which one. Video. It's set to high resolution. Well, let me apply that and see. And let me enter full screen here. Okay, on my end, like what's coming into Restream here is as sharp as I could ask for. Let me see if there's something in Restream. Okay, there we go. It was restream. Let me take a look at it now. All right. How does it look now, Karen? Because like when I enter full screen on this, it's nice and crisp. But I've uh, everything over here was set to high, but restream was set to low for easy streaming. Hopefully that's a little clearer now. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. I love being able to mask things off and leave the information there because you never know when you're going to have to make a change or when I might need to copy that piece again and use it somewhere else. And if I cut that out of it, if I just cut that information out and deleted it, I can't get back to it. Like if I want to use this same texture on the ceiling without importing it and stuff, I could come over here and right click and duplicate layer. Now I'm going to go to that layer and I'm going to delete the mask. I'm going to come over here with the object select tool and start moving things around, and then it's going to just that is dragging on me, probably because I got everything going in high res now. All right, let's try this and see. Oh man, come on. All right, we're not going to do that. Normally I can do it, but it is just wanting to crash on me right now. Okay, so we are going to import image again. We're going to come down and grab that image again. Normally I can do this without having to do that, but I could just copy and paste it. But the amount of changes I was wanting to make are just slogging it all down. So I'm going to move this over to there-ish. And I'm going to move this. I'm going to hold down the shift key. And if I hold down the shift key, this will either try and stay in line with that vertical edge that's already set at that angle, or it will try and stay in line with the horizontal edge of the object that's selected. So I can just move it to the side and it'll stay on the same plane up and down as it was. And I can do the same thing here. If I click that node and then hold down the shift key, it will either move it right along that line or along the line that it was on the side. So I'm just going to move it over there to just what roughly seems like the right place. And now we've thrown that texture into two different spots on here, which is all well and cool. Now, what we also can do is I'm gonna put all of these in a group right now. I'm going to right click and create folder, insert layer, and that way I can just turn off the whole group at once when I don't want to see it. Now we've got this section here. I've selected this. I'm going to come in and go to my correct line and set to thicken and just shaboosh and shaboosh. And we're going to thicken this up a little bit because we like them thick. And we're going to make those lines nice and fat. Hit it a few times. And there's different ways we could do that too. Like I could draw a selection and select everything and then come over here to brush size and enlarge it and make it thicker that way too. It's a beautiful thing of vector lines. You can always go back and change them. Now, but you say, Fishy, we don't want it all that thick and black. Just listen, trust the process. All right, I've got everything selected now. And now I'm going to turn my foreground color to white. And now it has made everything white. But Fishy, we can't see it now. Just trust the process, Kyron. Yeah. All right, now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn on border effect. The border effect is white, so we still can't see it. I'm going to click on that little section there. And what you can't see because of the way this is sharing is the whole color thing comes up, and I'm going to set it to black. Boom. Now, look at Kyron over here, trusting the process all the time. Thank you, Kyron. Now we can come in and we can enlarge this edge as much as we think it needs to be. We can make it really big and bold if we want to, or we can make it, a little bit finer. And what I'm going for right now is I just want to outline that all of these sections are separated from each other, like they're separate tiles with grout in the middle, or separate panels with electrical conduit running through it, or whatever we want to do. So now we've got a completely different look for that. Like we've got separate bricks, separate tiles, separate panels for our danger room wall, whatever texture we decided to do this with. Now we have a completely different look for it. And I'm going to, once again, turn off the background so that it's transparent. And I'm going to export single layer PNG. I'm going to hit that same one for texture 01, and I'm going to make this texture 02 and save it at high resolution and click OK. And you couldn't see any of that, and I've got to fix it, and I'm not sure how to fix that, but I'm going to fix it. Now we can turn that off. We can turn back on the room that we were working on. Why are you always wanting to separate things? Are you a separatist? In some ways, I guess I when it's keeping my layers and stuff separate so I don't get confused, I'm absolutely a separate but equal kind of guy. I know it's not popular these days to want to keep your layers separated. Everybody wants the layers mixing and the interlayer marriages and stuff. Back in my day, we kept our layers separated. Back in my day, you had to do it all on pen and paper. It all mingled together and made a mess. All right. Now, I'm going to import our new texture so we can see the difference. And I'm going to go down to texture 2. And we're going to stick this one down on the floor. So I'm going to pull these nodes down. I'm going to put that edge over there in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner. Well, I do, baby. I'm going to hold down shift while I pull that edge over. I'm going to hold down shift while I pull this edge in. And because I didn't really make an edge over here that I can click to, I'm just going to go until it looks right to my eye. And that looks like that matches up pretty well. And now when we come in here, we have like the separation in between the tiles, and it gets smaller as it goes on in perspective because we did it straight and even and then mixed it in. I'm sitting here reading Katie's comments and about her layers mixing. Katie's out there mixing the layers. It's chaos. Dogs are laying with cats. So just to preface, I have quite the rainbow family, and none of my kids look the same. They're all kinds of different shades of the rainbow. I am simply just playing, but that is separated better than church and state. That ain't saying much. All right. Now I'm going to turn it off for a second. I'm going to come in. I'm going to select this area so that I'm getting around this box. And then I'm going to turn it back on just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go to layer mask and then mask outside selection. And it trims off everything that's outside of that. And now we've got all these neat little tiles laid in here. And I wanted to show you the other one that I was talking about while we're at it. I'm going to come up to File and import image, import pattern from image. And then I'm going to go over to my comic books and I'm going to get bricks repeatable because I made it specifically for that. And like you see, this little blue box in the middle is the actual pattern. Everything else is just it being repeated. Now, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn off free transform and I'm going to go to just scale and rotate because I don't want to bend this one because that back wall that I want to put it on is flat. So now I can shrink that box and the bricks get smaller and smaller and smaller until they just become a crazy pattern. I can enlarge it until they become big, giant, hefty cinder blocks. Whatever I want to do. If I was a crazy person and I wanted to rotate the bricks, I could do that. I'm not a crazy person, so I don't want to do that. But you could if you would. I'm gonna move that around until it looks good. And a lot of times, what I'll do is I will actively try and shrink and enlarge this until like I get a row of bricks to stop at the top and the bottom because usually that's the way it works. Like they usually plan around if you're bricking something like that. Like ceilings are the height they are because it's the height of the drywall. Like we don't just make them anywhere we want. We make them the height that we get the drywall in so that it goes nice and easy. And we do the same thing with bricks. Like this, a friend of mine's house is the ceiling is about a foot shorter than it normally would be in a lot of houses, but she has a cinder block house and it saved her saved her like $1,000 or something just in bricks alone, not having to go up another rung of cinder blocks to put the roof in. Just weird stuff. All right, now I'm going to turn that off for a second, and the same thing as we've done before, I'm going to select that area. I'm going to turn it back on so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to layer mask. Now, if I said mask selection, it will cut out that area that we had selected, and everything else stays brick. So if you wanted to select like the windows and do that so that everything else is brick, that absolutely works. That's not really how I want to do it. So I'm going to do mask outside selection instead. And now we have our crazy metal textures on the top. We have our crazy tiles on the floor. And then we got those brick textures in the back. It's all cool stuff. And you can do that for every different angle. Like I could bring in these textures and move them and bend them so that they fit on all these different pieces at all these different angles. And it's really cool. But this isn't the coolest texture that I want to show y'all how to make. And we've still got time. So I'm going to show you how to make the texture that I put on the spaceship, which is really kind of fun to me. Anyway, I got to up my game for naming and using more layers. I usually just forget it's an option. Yeah. That's absolutely why I color code them, because it's quicker and I don't have to fool with it. I don't have to fool with typing out a bunch of names. And honestly, with my old eyes, I have to, when I do label them, I have to label it in all caps for me to be able to read it on the screen. And that's why anybody who has messaged with me has seen times that I'm yelling at you because I'm writing in all caps. Because when I'm working, I keep the caps lock on. I like to save all of my files in all caps for the titles. I like to label my layers when I do label them in all caps, just because it's easier for me to read quickly. And, so all the time, if you message me, I will message in all caps. And I don't look at the screen when I'm typing because I hunt and peck. I'm looking at the keyboard and seeing what I'm typing in my head. So I will be through the entire message and look up and then realize it was all in caps and I'm not typing it again. So I'll usually be like, oops, all caps. And sorry, that's who I am. That's the way my brain works. So, good luck with that. All right, we're going to turn this off. And Now we're going to make a new separated layer because we're not having these layers mix. We're not doing that kind of thing. And now we're going to come over here to the shape tools and we're going to get in a rectangle, but we don't want it set on 5 point because that's too small and nobody's going to see it. And we don't want that. Do, 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 do. Wouldn't be prudent. Do, 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 do. And now we are just going to draw a bunch of boxes all over the place. Gonna put a box here, gonna put a box there. Wouldn't put a box here because it's not right. Gonna put one over here. Okay, now one thing I've noticed from doing this before is I don't like it when these edges are too close. So I'm going to pull that one up a little bit. And all right, so we've got all that. We could just continue doing this down the page. I'm going to copy and paste. And then I am going to hold down Shift and I'm going to rotate that around. And then I'm going to pull it down. Oh, I'm not going to make that joke. No, wouldn't do that. Wouldn't be right. All right, and then I'm going to overlay that right about yonder ways. Do 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 do. Yep, do 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 do. Yep, do 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 do. Polka dot, polka dot, polka dot, afro. All right, move that around over there. And then we're going to give it a little copy and paste like we used to do back in the good old days. Rotate it around holding the shift key so it goes in proper organized sections and not just all willy-nilly intermixed layer kind of ways. And then we're going to set that right over. I don't know. I don't really care for that much. All right, we'll stick that there. And then we are going to come over here and we'll throw in a couple of more boxes just for good measure. Because you can, well, I say you can never have too many. You absolutely can have too many. I put too many in some of them. And now, what I want to do to keep it interesting is I'm going to come in and delete some of these sections in different places. And we'll do that. And we'll do that. And we'll do that. And then we'll come and get those. And we'll do that. And sometimes this is easier when you've got a whole lot more lines in here. You can get really interesting shapes, but it can also get kind of confusing if there's too much of it. Polka dot, polka dot, polka dot, afro. Do, 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 do. All right, I'll delete those. I'll delete that one. I'll delete that. I'll delete those. Nah. But you see what I'm doing. I'm just making interesting overlapping shapes in here. Afro circus, indeed. Polka dot, polka dot, polka dot, afro. God, that got stuck in my head so bad when that first came out. Kid set me off the other day, and I've been ticking out all kinds of really old stuff that I haven't ticked out in a long time. All right, I'm going to delete those, and delete that one, and we'll delete both of those. And we'll delete those. And those. And shabazzle. And no, I didn't want to do that. I did not want to do that. Zoom in a little bit so we can see what we're doing, children. Oh man, I don't want to do that. All right, we'll delete that one then. And shaboom, shaboom, shaboom. And we'll take those out. Okay, so now we have this interesting panel. And we are going to, again, we're going to turn off the background so that we get just that image. And then we're going to go to File, Export, PNG. And I'm going to put this in a different place because I'm probably actually going to use this one a lot. So I'm going to make it techno-texture. Because I've used that whole texture a lot. So I want to make some new ones that aren't the exact same pattern over and over again so that I can do different stuff with it. Now, what I'm going to do while we're in here, while we're having fun, I'm going to duplicate that layer. And I'm going to click the old transform tool, and I am going to make a much more complicated version of it. Click OK. And now we have a very dense pattern, which I could, and we're going to do it. We're going to take the time and we're going to do a little bit of it. We're going to come in here and delete a few parts here and there. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Some of them are on different layers. I forgot about that. So I'm going to duplicate the original layer. And then I'm going to hide the original layer. And then I'm going to combine my two new layers together. So the copy of my original layer and the copy that I had flipped, I'm going to combine them together into one layer. So now I can come and delete on the whole thing where I need to. And there we go. Oops, that was too much. And we're just going to delete a few of them here and there, and some of the ones that are a little too close to each other to look good, or a little too matchy-matchy. And we'll let that continue around. And we'll get rid of that. And I'm just kind of randomly picking some things and thinking about things from the other pattern that I made that I kind of wish I had changed. And or that, once I went to moving it around, realized that those lines that are really close to each other kind of become a pain. And so, just applying some of the lessons that I've learned from playing with that other pattern so much. And sometimes having some long continuing patterns is cool. Just take that out and make a big block out of it. And we'll take that out and take that out while we're at it. And I like to think about all the different things that I might use this for, because, this isn't only good for like making walls. This could be the ground of a city as well. And I kind of want to show that too. And then I'm going to turn off the background again. And we are going to save this one. Save as. Save as. No, wait a minute. We don't want to do save as. We want to do export. Duh. Export single layer PNG. And then, techno-texture. And I'm going to make this one 03 because I have an idea for what I'm doing for 02 already. All right. So now we have that more complicated one saved as well as a texture. And now I'm going to come up here. I'm going to turn it off and turn back on my original simpler texture. And we are going to grab the object select tool. We are going to grab, that's on. Oh, I'm not on the right layer. That's why. We're going to select all that. We're going to come over here and we're going to thicken it up. Because I realize sometimes I just want those sections in between to be bare. So like it could be lit in between panels or something. Like, you can see the electricity burning behind these wall panels or whatever. And that's just too cool a thing to skip. So again, I'm going to go to border effect and I'm going to make it black around those outlines. And whoops, I made it smaller and I wanted to make it bigger. And now we're going to save the file so we don't lose it. And then we're going to export a PNG. And we're going to go to the right file again. And then we're going to go to techno-texture. And we're going to make this one 02, not 052. Make it 02. Katie's got Afro Circus stuck in her head too. Good. That's my purpose in life. To get the crazy out of my head and into yours. Poke it out, poke it out, poke it out, Afro. All right. Now we're going to turn that off. Now we're going to start all over, boys and girls. We're going to do something new because you can import any one of those textures the way we did before, and you can put them on any surface that you want to. We are going to make a new layer. We're going to move it up out of there. I didn't want to make that a raster layer. I wanted to make it a raster layer, and instead I made it a vector layer, but we'll use the vector layer in a second. All right, we'll turn that blue. We're going to, and now we're going to say we are on the surface of the ship that we were drawing before. Like we're on the surface, you can see the front of the ship going out into the distance, and you can see some building kind of structures raising off of it. And so like the ship is going out that way into nothingness, and there are some structures on there that we can see. And you know what? Let's make it more interesting. We're going to say we're looking like across the ship a little bit, like the ship is going this way, and there's some towers on it that are, going like this. So now that I have roughly sketched in what I want to do, it's going to make it a whole lot easier to put in my perspective rulers where I want them to be. And so I've got some that are going to be coming out here to this vanishing point. And then I've got some that are going to be coming over this way. And now I'm going to zoom out, get my object select. I'm going to select on my lines here, and I'm going to move them until I get a better look at what I want. I want these buildings going straight up and down. I don't want them in a really wonky perspective. So that's going to change some of my lines a little bit. But like you can grab here and move the whole basis of your perspective, like where your horizon line is. And if you want it way up here and you're looking down on your buildings, you could do that. But I'm going to put it right about here, right about the midpoint, and we're going to see how this works out. Okay. Now, again, I've got my perspective layer here selected. I'm going to turn it green so that I know it's the perspective layer. And I'm going to move it up here to where I'm working so I know this perspective layer that's green goes with these layers right above it. And this perspective layer goes with all these because it's in that group down there. Now I'm going to come up here to this vector layer, and I'm going to make sure I switch off of the perspective ruler because I will just keep making perspective lines if I don't switch off of that. I've made that mistake so many times. All right, so now we are going to come over here to the drawing tools, and I'm going to get my straight line, and we are going to start to draw in, like there's the edge. There's one edge of the deck. Here's the other edge of the deck. And let's say, if we wanted these buildings to be starting on the same plane, these two towers, then we could draw a line all the way across for where the buildings are going to start and then work up on those towers from there. And that works fine for me. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing and get right in there on that corner. And I'm going to come out a long ways, a lot further than I need. And then I'm going to say we're going to make the tower that wide, and we're going to come up. You can't see that on the other side. And if we're going to make the towers the same height, I'm just going to shoot all the way across with that perspective line. And then come out here for that. And then click here and come out for that. And then I'm going to get my eraser tool, and we're going to erase all the other lines that we don't need. Whoops. I erased too much. Methinks the fish doth erase too much. Out, 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 damned line. All right. So now we've got very, 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 very quickly laid out those lines. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a thinner line just to help me get these things in. Maybe I can't see it. Is that the problem? Or is it going the wrong way? Okay. Oh, I'm on the eraser tool. Duh, I'm not on the line tool. That's why. I'm going to make a few lines across this way to help me get when I'm stretching these things out, to help me make sure that I'm getting them in the correct perspective. I'm going to put just a couple of lines in there that I can easily erase to help make sure. Now, see, these I can see the whole box. This one, I really can't. So I'm going to throw in a few more lines here just to help me make sure that I'm getting those lines correct. And hopefully that will be a little obvious. Like I can line up that whole image for the pattern to this and make that work. I don't have a whole lot to work with here. And here I've only got those two lines. I don't really have a line how far out that stops. So if I can get some of my interior lines to match up with these, I'll know I've got it pretty straight. So now I'm going to come down below that. I'm going to import image, and I'm going to go down to techno-texture number 1 and import it. There we go. I'm going to set that back to free transform because that's what I want. And I'm going to move this part of it over here and get that side line to like match up with that back line. And then I'm going to pull this down here and pull this over here a little bit. We're going to pull that out further this way to try and match up with what the perspective is doing. And so now, like, see, I can look here and see these lines going this direction don't match up with these lines. These lines are pretty good. They match up pretty well. So I'm going to keep playing around with this now until I can get those, I want to say horizontal lines. They're not really horizontal, but I want to play around with them until I can get them to match up a lot closer. Now, see, that got me a whole lot closer right there. And which is also telling me if I pull this side out further, that will match up probably even better. Okay, now see, that matches up pretty well. I'm probably not going to get a whole lot better than that quickly in what I'm doing. So we're going to go with that for now. So I'm going to turn that off for a second. I'm going to come back in here. On that layer, I'm going to get my eraser tool and I'm just going to erase these guidelines because I don't need those guidelines anymore. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to select that area and then I'm going to turn that texture back on and I'm going to click on that layer and I'm going to click mask outside selection. And now it has cut it down to just showing up there where I need it. Now I am going to do the same thing on the other buildings. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's see. There's still time. And one of the cool things that you can do is I can turn the perspective layer back on now for that set of layers. And I can now come on. I don't have zoom on my fingertips. I can come. Make sure. Oh, I'm in the mask on the other layer. That's why it's not working. Get back on my vector layer. I can come down off of there in perspective, come off of that corner in perspective, come off of that corner in perspective. And now we've got a little recessed area drawn in there. I can insinuate that there's another recessed wall coming off of that. We can zoom in here and say, okay, this building comes down into here because this section is also recessed if we want it to be. And now I'm going to come in and thicken up. Ooh, I don't need it that big. Thicken that up and no, Sarah, you did not forget. And I actually thought about messaging you, but I was running around like a fishy with his head cut off and didn't do it. Now, you would think I could just come and erase this line and it would erase back to here, but this line is an image. It's not a vector line that's connecting. Let's see. This is very helpful. If someone's still getting used to drawing digitally, it's cool to see how more experienced digital artists handle perspectives that go outside the page. Oh, absolutely. And of course, there's always the hey, sir. But now, if I just erase this line here, if I just erase this line right here, it'll erase the whole line because this isn't a vector line. So I'm going to draw a line right there crossing it so that I have that intersection to erase back to. And now I can erase that to the intersection. And now that building sits down in that little section. Sarah was doing semi productive things? Sarah, I'm ashamed. I'm very proud of you, Sarah. Thank you. I'm glad you were doing productive stuff. If you had to miss a little bit of School of Fish just to be able to get some good stuff done on your own, why, I'll allow it. I will indeed. All right, now we'll draw them. But this kind of stuff, oh, that goes so quick and easy. And, you know, another neat thing you could do if you were so inclined, and I know Kyron's inclined, is now that we've got all that laid out, I could come back in here and say import image. We could bring in that texture again, or we could bring in one of the other ones. We could do whatever we want. We could go all kinds of willy-nilly with it. Not willy-nilly, anything but willy-nilly. And I'm going to line it up. I'm going to use my perspective lines a little bit to help line this up. And I'm going to drag this out until those lines kind of match up a little bit there. Now, you probably wouldn't want to do this over the whole thing, but over this section that's right here in the front, this could be really cool. And now I'm just trying to move it out until I get some of these lines to match up pretty close. That one comes a little bit too far. So I need to move this down a little bit. And let's move this one around just a smooch. There we go. All right, that's not too bad. I don't think it's right, but it's getting closer. All right, that's pretty close. That's close enough for the chicks Kyron dates. So I'm gonna turn that off, and now I'm gonna select in these. Oh, I got negative selection on. That won't work. Additive. There we go. I'm gonna select those two areas. I'm gonna turn it back on. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna go to mask outside selection. And now, boom, we have added that texture to these two plates that are in the foreground. It would probably be too much for the stuff in the background, but you know. Y'all crazy in the comments. Silly old Karen. Being a silly old Karen is a silly old Karen will do. Out there stirring the pot. Pot stir is what we called them back in the days. Back in my day. Let's see, is this still? Oh, that is still Zoom. I forgot. I haven't used this in so long. All right, now that's too thick a line for what we're working with. But we can adjust that a little bit. Yeah, that's probably still a little bit thin. Let's go up to 5. All right, and so now I can come in and draw off of some of these points and make this stuff way more interesting. Come draw down off of there, draw off of here, draw off of yonder ways, come back to my eraser tool and whoops. Erase that. And I forgot that's not a vector line. But what I can do is come over to the mask for that layer, and I can come in with the lasso fill tool and set to transparent. and clicked on the mask itself, not just on the layer, and come in and just draw that section out. It's still there if I want to go back and put it back in, but I just boop, drew it right out. And doing those kind of bits, make this so much more interesting so fast. And then I'm going to come back over here to the straight line tool. I'm going to make it black again. I'm going to come back to my vector layer, and we're going to make this little section here do the same thing. Zoop. And zoop, zoop, deo, zoop, deo, zoop, deo, deo, deo. There I go, there I go, there I go again. What's my weakness? Man. And you can just add all kinds of interesting little doodads so quickly to this. And I'm going to thicken these lines up a little bit so they match up a little bit more with the outside edge of that. And this makes so freaking cool textures so quickly. And you can absolutely do them the other way too. You can raise some of these up if you want. Like, let's say, everybody say, we'll raise this up, and this point, and this point, and this point, and we'll come over here, and that crosses there. So we're going to come to here, and then we're going to come this way to there, which gives us this line to here, which gives us this line to here, which, if we did our mathing right, which we came pretty close, we didn't get it perfect. We're no kind. Let's see. All right. That'll be an easier place to fix it. And then I can delete some of these extra lines that we're not going to see in the finished product. And I'm going to come back and thicken up some of these exterior lines so they got more weight like the other exterior lines. And the outside of this tower box is a vector line, so I can come in and just delete it back to where it needs to be. And then I can go in to the mask on the other layer with transparency set and my lasso fill tool. And that was the wrong one. That was the wrong layer, because this is the extra texture that I put on. And shoot. And now we've got a little raised section, quick and easy, down and dirty. And you can very easily do the same things all over this thing. And like, we can come in and go back to the line tool, come back to this layer. We can draw down these lines that cross over the edge so that those continue. We can draw in some similar styled areas here so that we're getting the same kind of look of texture in here if we want. All kinds of stuff, super quick and easy. Bring down some of these lines too because they overlap. We're going to bring down some of these lines, and we're going to make another loading bay over here. Quickity, 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 quick. Because that's how our little entry loading bays are. They're quickity, quickity, quick in a hurry. We're going to thicken that up a little bit, and thicken that, and that. And then we're coming down to this one with our lasso fill tool set to transparent, and we're on the mask. I'll mask off that little line right there that should have disappeared, but you know what? I think we were on a vector layer when we did that. It can get a little confusing sometimes. But yeah, that was on a vector layer. But man, this stuff goes so quick. You could build a whole city this way, like just in no time. And like a techno city. So let's do that real quick just to show how much fun it would be. All right. We're going to make another raster layer here. I'm going to rough out. I'm on the eraser tool. That doesn't work. I'm going to rough out some perspective lines for my city just so I kind of know what I'm working with here. And then I'm going to come in again. I'm going to get on the right screen because there's too many to work with. And we're going to go to perspective ruler and we're going to line up with some of these. And we're going to make a perspective point out over here. And then we're going to make a perspective point out over this way. And if you know your Uncle Fishy at all, you know I'm going to come click on it with the object select tool and I'm going to straighten that up because I don't want a bunch of crooked buildings pointing off to one angle. And if I've got one perspective point close to the page, I'm going to take the other one a little bit further off because, you know, that's just how I play. And I play rough, baby. And we're going to turn that green so that we know it's perspective layer. And then we're going to drag it on up over to here so we know which layers we're working with. And then we're going to turn that off. And now we'll turn on a vector layer just so we got a little something to work with. And I'm going to make a couple of lines just going in perspective. We've got one for the horizon here. Whoops. No, now we got two for the horizon. And make a few more just so I can have something to line that image up to when I import it. Turn that off for now. And now we are going to File, Import, Image. And now I'm going to go to the more complicated texture just for the hell of it. Just because I can. Just because it's my party. And I'll pull in a complicated texture if I want to. If I want to. If I want to. You don't too. If it happened to you do. Do do do. Do 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 do. It's Kyron's party and he'd fire us all if he wants to. And now I'm just going to move it around until I start to get some of these angles to match up better. And we're getting there. We're starting to get there. We ain't there yet. We're starting to get there. Let's see. Where do we need to bring this? I'm trying to think it through. Trying to be smart about this, and it's hard when you're stupid. Okay, that edge definitely needed to be brought in. Okay. That ain't right, but it's getting closer, I think. Let's try moving this guy up. Yeah, there we go. That's helping a lot. My only problem is you got to zoom out so far to get to the edges of this thing sometimes to move it around to the right perspective that it can get kind of confusing. Okay. All right, that ain't right. And I'm not. I got one more fix for it that we can do, but I'm really trying to see if I can get this right, but I'm kind of wasting time at this point that I could be using to be more productive with it. And close, but that's no cigar. Okay. So now what we're going to do to make this work is I'm now going to, now that I've got this laid out roughly where I want it, I'm going to make new perspective lines that do match up with these lines. Since I can't get it to match up perfectly with my other perspective lines, and it's really going to matter here in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and set one perspective point to those lines there, and one that matches up with these. Come out further and be easier to do. There we go. All right. I got that wonky for some reason. I don't know how I got it. I did something wrong on it, but let me see if I can. All right. Something is way off. I don't know what I did. Karen, what did I do wrong here? That's what I want to know. So what did I do wrong? Let me try moving this one more time and see. Oops, wait a minute. I need to make that green. And I need to move it up here where we're working so I don't lose it. You know, I think that's what I did wrong. That's not really. It's not really following that right. God, surely not. Not my Karen. Okay. That's getting much better. I was trying to twist it into going where I wanted it to go and not doing it right. Okay, now let's see if I grab this corner. Nope, wait a minute. Let me take it off a free transform. Hold shift and alt so I can grow it. Okay, let's see. And now go back to free transform and touch it up. Anyway, the point of this was to try and get this laid out really close to those grid lines so that your perspective will work correctly. And now I'm going to turn the transparency down on that. I need to leave the perspective on. Okay, but now we have this layout of all this crazy squares all over the place. Man, this is still too high. That's part of what's killing it. So that's going up there too high. Man, this is all right. We're going to zoom out. I'm going to select everything above that perspective line, the horizon line. And then I'm going to right click over here, layer mask, mask selection, and cut that out. So now we got it going to the horizon line and we got all this stuff laid out. And we're going to hope that this works from here on out. We are going to make a new vector layer above that. And I'm going to come in here with the straight line tool. And we are going to zoom in. And then we are just going to loft some of these buildings that we are building off of this floor plan of this crazy city. And okay, off of that corner and that corner. And you can't even see that one, so it doesn't really matter. And we're going to erase and erase, erase. And there we go. There's one of those buildings that we have lifted up from our crazy new floor plan. And then, whoops, we're going to lift up that corner where it touches that building and this one. And we're going to draw from here to over here and then from here to over here because that edge of the building just goes off into space. These match up. So we can come, whoops, zoom in some here. This one comes to the edge of this building, and then it comes from the edge of this building over to here. And we can see these lines match up, so we can just pull out from here. And now we have the edges of that little smaller building that is attached. And I don't need that line anymore. I don't need that anymore because it's covered up with this smaller building. And we don't need that. And let's see, I'm going to draw this in just for good measure. Yeah, see, and that's where it doesn't match up with the perspective lines. That's a problem. But, all right, I'm going to come back onto the mask for this. I'm going to come in with my tool. I'm going to turn off perspective because I don't want to be trapped to it. And not set to transparent. There, we're set to transparent. And then I'm going to erase everything in here that we can't see because the buildings are covering it up. Now, the problem is you need that outline, this to match up in perspective, or this is going to eventually not work right, which is going to happen because I didn't take the time to get it perfect. But I'm trying to show you just the basics of how it works. So we're going to forgive our Uncle Fishy for not being 100% perfect this time. And where is my undo? I forgot where I did it. I forgot where I put my undo tool in there. I'm going to turn the perspective back on. And nope, that was the wrong way. Go up. And let's see, we're going to draw this building. We're going to loft that up from there. And we can't see anywhere else that it goes. So we're just going to say it comes to here. And goes to there. And goes to, nope, we don't want to do that because that's too close to that corner and we don't want a weird tangent. So we're going to change our building to make it fit. And we're going to delete all those other things. And then we're going to come down here. And this is going to be a little low section of buildings over here. And erase those parts that we don't need. We don't need that anymore. We need the rest of that. And then we're going to come back into this layer mask. We're going to turn the perspective off because we don't want to get stuck to that again. I'm going to go to transparent and lasso fill, and we are going to get rid of all of this other stuff that the buildings that we're drawing are now covering. I like drawing from like one corner and then swooping up and coming down to the other corner, and then you'll get a nice straight line in between those points. And now I can see a couple of places in the vector lines where I need to come erase. And then I can come back and thicken some of these outside lines for the outer edges of these buildings. I kind of subscribe to the rule of if this is like an outside edge of something, like if this is the outer edge of the building and it bends away from you, it's going to have darker outlines. If you see this edge but you can see the sides of the building, it's lighter. It tends to work really well for me, and I've seen other people use it to, great rewards. So like this interior edges here where you can see both sides of it are lighter, and then these outer edges where the building folds around away from you are darker, and it kind of helps separate those a little bit. Let's see. Not going to be 100% perfect. That's never happened before. I'm here to tell you. I got my new head shaver. My head's all nice and shiny. Got my new office. Got my new desk that I custom built into the closet so that I could do all this work for you. And then I'm not going to be 100% perfect. It's terrible, terrible, tragic. All right. And then we got those buildings in there. And now let's say we want to get a little extra fancy and we want to import an image again. And this time we're going to do our techno-texture 2 that's got the little borders and the outlines and all that snazzy jazzy. And we're going to bring that and stick it on this here building in the background. That's how we do it around here. I don't know how you do it here in Negative Woods. This is how we do it around here. We import an image, and then we skew that sucker till it fits right. If you don't like it, you can just move yourself back to New York City. Crazy hippies, commies. I don't care what you are. You're crazy to me. Blah, 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 says the crazy man. Blah, 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 indeed. All right, I got that. Now I'm going to copy it. I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm just going to whip this edge around because I know this edge is going to match up because I'm going to leave it where it was. I'm going to grab this corner, and I'm going to hold shift so that it's only going up and down on that line, and I'm going to pull it down until it looks about right. New York City, get a rope. Because it makes perfect sense to hang a man for salsa from New York, right? Yeah, that was a smart commercial. Oh, trust me, hanging somebody's funny. Yeah, nobody will take offense to that. Okay, so we got that matching up nice and neat in that neat little corner. And we're going to grab that one. I'm going to combine with the layer below. So those make one image now. I'm going to turn it off for a second. I'm going to select this area. I'm going to turn it back on. And I'm going to say mask selection this time and not outside selection because I want to get rid of this part. And boom, that's done. Did it get it all? No, it didn't. Because Fishy was less than perfect. And Kyron is shocked. But there you go. Now we got that. I used to live near the original York. Well, look at you. Just because you live in a part of the world where people have been living for hundreds of years longer than us, you think you're so much better. We got roads built by the Romans. We got petrochemical power plants. Poison water. So we got people living in Flint, Michigan, still set their water on fire coming out the faucet. Katie just wishes she was as cool as us. We got ponds full of frogs too. They got 4 or 5 legs, 6, 7, 8 legs if they own them. They really want to be advantageous. But anyway, there you go. We got that stuff coming out roses. Now I could again come in here and turn on my perspective layer, and I could come back into my tools and turn it to black, and I could. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. That's why I'm drawing on the mask again. And we could draw some of these sections as recesses into the building. If we wanted to, we could loft some of these coming out and make them raised sections on the building. That didn't match up perfectly. That's because I didn't take my time to do it right in the first place. It always comes back and bites you in the butt. That's what Kyron told me. But I didn't believe him. I was cocky. I flew too close to the sun. Wings of pastrami. But anyway, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with that. And I dig it. Let's see. We could come in here if we want to be extra cool like Kyron does. And we can make this whole section here a recessed section in this corner instead of a raised one. And then, no, can't do that because there's not a line over there. Got to put a line going across it. And now we can delete that. Oh, nope, can't. There's not a line down there. A little line crossing it. And there we go. So we can have that little corner there recessed in. And we could come over here and put a little door on it. So the little old soldiers working in that crazy old techno building can come out for the smoke breaks and whatnot. And we can make this an entryway hangar for the spaceships to fly in and out of. Because, that's what they got to do. We got to have some place to fly out of. You just going to leave your spaceships in the hangar all day? I think not. But yeah, those textures are so quick and easy to make. They're so fun. And it just keeps going. Look at old J-Man jumping in the comment section. Looks like a Borg ship design. Yeah, it does. Ernest Borgnine shit. Yeah, that's where we got it from. Now, let's see. Kyron had his butler type. I told you dogs come back and bite you in the butt. They absolutely do. By dogs, he means the 99%, of course. Don't bite him in the butthole. Now, there's a tick that my kids hear all the time. It's just become a thing because I can't get rid of it. Anyway, you can see what I'm getting at here, though. That stuff goes really quickly. And we can pull in another texture over here. Let's see. File, import, image. And we will go with the first techno-texture. You know what we're going to do? We're going to pull in the whole texture. No, that's too complicated. That's too complicated for the area. As part of what I wanted to do in this is make some textures at different scales because the one I was using, the whole texture I made was really complicated to have all the little details in that ship. And the rest of this, isn't that complicated. Little Katie from Scotland says, my dog once bit my ex in the butt when he wouldn't stop tickling me. There you go. I have been bitten in the hiney by dogs a few times. I got a scar on the back of my leg from a golden retriever. Not my dog, but I got the scar nonetheless. The scar outlasted the golden retriever. Then I got a scar under my chin from a playground. That playground doesn't exist anymore either. I showed them all. I helped lift that playground, damn it. I outlived that church, I believe. It used to be the daycare that I went to as a youngin'. All right, we're going to drop that down until those lines kind of match up into the perspectives a bit. All right. And then we're going to duplicate that layer. And I'm going to grab this side of it. We don't have to do it that way, but I want those edges of this technobabble squares to wrap around. So doing it that way makes that quick and easy. And then I'm going to grab this corner and hold shift and just move it up and down on that line until I feel like the lines are kind of matching up in perspective with that section there. And then I'm going to combine those two layers into one. I'm going to turn them off. And then I'm going to select, 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 and select. And then I'm going to turn it back on. And I'm going to layer mask, mask selection, shaboom! We got that blocked off. And now we have, a slightly different texture on this building. Slightly. Let's see. It's a little matchy. I should have rotated it. It's what I should have done. And then it wouldn't be quite so matchy as it is now. But what are we gonna do? Kyron didn't tell us to do any better. We're just living in a Kyron's world. Trying to make the best of it. And what do we do when we're living in a Kyron's world, boys and girls? We're going to draw some of these little doodads in perspective, and we're going to make this more complicated than it needed to be, because that's how we do things when you're trying to make it in a Kyron's world. Yeah, afro, poke it up, afro. Okay. Then we're going to come back in here, and we're going to grab our lasso tool and some little transparent paint, and we're going to just mask that off like a big old dog, like a big old D-O double G. Boom, baby! And we could absolutely use these to change the outside line of this building too. And let's just do that just for fun. Just for the fun of it. Let's change the whole shape of the building. We're going to take this line. That doesn't match up exactly, so we're going to turn off the perspective so that we can just make this work for now. And we're going to apologize to all the internet haters that tell us that we should have been perfect the first time. And we're just going to quote the we're going to quote the words of the great philosopher Confucius when he said, "Fuck them if they can't take a joke." And that's a mantra I try and live by, boys and girls. Because it just ain't worth the hassle otherwise. And I believe it was Albert Einstein who said, "If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense." Dang it. Dang it. Dang it. Dang it. Oops. I forgot. I'm still on wrong. There we go. Now I can come in and delete those and have it break off where we want. And now come back a little bit smaller. These sections come back to about there. And you know what? We're going to say that there's a little section right here, living right there, out in the open, all kinds of happy. Got a little raised building sticking out right there. It's okay. It's your world. You can make whatever you want to happen. Your world, Captain. We're gonna delete that happy little line right there. We got a happy little building living there. And then we're gonna go back to our pen tool and our line, and let's say there's a little sunken opening right here. Maybe some giants are gonna walk out of there for their smoke break. Maybe it's a place where they drop off packages from Amazon when they're too big. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It's your world. You can do what you want. Let's say over here, we've got a little old section that's going to be recessed, let's say. We want a happy little recess that comes way in It's got a big overhang, and it's going to come down over here. And that's just going to be a big, interesting open spot. That's okay. We can have a big open spot there if we want to. It's our world. I give you permission. And let's say over in this little section, we want a little safety railing over here because this isn't Star Wars and we don't want our soldiers to fall off and die when they're coming out for their smoke break onto this nice little overhang that's so sweetly provided so that the acid rain that's falling from the sky doesn't end up burning their little eyebrows off while they're smoking their cancer sticks. And we can do that because it's our world. We can do what we want to do. Oh my God. Y'all should have been here about, oh, I don't know, 15 years ago. I don't know why you weren't. And I was working on a project. I was when my old pastor found out that I was an artist and that I could create literally anything he could ask for. Um, he started having me build props for church, and because he really liked to use props in his sermons, give something for people to be staring at the whole time, wondering, oh man, what's he going to do with that? And at first, I was kind of put out that when I would build a prop for him, it wouldn't get used until like the very end. Like the first time he had me build a prop was Easter Sunday, and he asked me, could I make a tomb for him? So I was like, yeah, sure. So I built a tomb. I'm here to tell you, this thing was awesome. It was three-dimensional. It was all paper mache, and it was designed so that it could break down and be stored for later and be taken apart. And I had all these seams built into the rock so that it could lift off and take apart, but you couldn't see it when it was all put together. It was an amazing tomb. And that tomb got used for like exactly 5 seconds in the sermon. And I was a little put out by that. And then he explained to me that the reason he does that is he wants people paying attention the whole time. He wants people looking at that, wondering, what on earth is he going to do with it? What is he going to do? When is that going to come into action? Okay, wait a second. That's not even that layer. That's why it's not working. That's the layer I need to be on. And so anyway, I got in the habit of building props for him, and he would just call me for random stuff. He called me one Friday before the Sunday service, and he's like, Friday afternoon, he's like, hey, is there any chance you could build me a Diet Coke machine by Sunday? And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, does it have to vend sodas? Like, do you have to be able to hit a button and have a soda come out? He's like, no, dude, I just need it to look like a Diet Coke machine. I was like, oh yeah, that I can do, no problem. And I built him a three-dimensional Coke machine with the curved front and hand painted the Diet Coke logo on there and everything, and looked awesome. And so this is like what we did. This was part of how I served at my church, was building these props for him, and really enjoyed it. It was a great time had by all. And then one day he asked me to build two mountains for him. And he wants one of them to be lush and green and vibrant, full of life. And the other one, he wants to be like an exact mirror image of it, but he wants it all dead and dying and like a smoking volcano and stuff. I was like, does it have to really like smoke? No, just look like it. Like, oh, okay, cool. So I built him these two giant mountains that we sat on stage, and they were painted and cut out of cardboard and stuff, but they looked really cool on stage. And as I was painting this green landscape on there, I started doing like a Bob Ross voice, and my kids were just getting a kick out of it. Like, we'll put some happy trees over here. Maybe there's a brook that wanted to come for a visit. It's cruising along, and oh, maybe it hit a little rock here, and it's going to turn and go another direction. Maybe that rock has some friends, and so it was fun. Then I had to paint the dead mountain, and they were just dying as I was like, and maybe maybe there's a dead, withered little tree over here that used to be happy, but now it's withered and died. And maybe there's a little cow skull here. Maybe that cow died of dysentery. Maybe it was eaten by wolves. I don't know. It's your world. You can have whatever you want, kill it in your world. And over here, there's a little poisonous puddle, and maybe a little lava came for visit. It's burning its way through, and maybe it burned its way through a little village, and all the little children died in the lava. Maybe there's some bones laying around, maybe some children's toys scattered among the bones. It's your world. There can be as much pain and sorrow as you want. And it was so freaking funny. I had so much freaking fun doing that. Was single-handedly not the most impressive uh, prop I ever built for him, but it was hands down the most fun I ever had making a prop for him. Dang it, I'm gonna find the right layer eventually. There we go. That's right there. There we go. But you can see how very quickly you can turn this into really complex, interesting shapes. And even if you just take one of these textures and put it in perspective and use it as a template, like use it as your pencil layer to figure out, okay, this is where I want some of this stuff. Like, how cool would this be for a really intricate, complicated apartment complex? If each one of these were tiers and stuff, balconies sticking out, and and that's the other thing you can do with these textures. Like we did with buildings the other day, you can make a texture like this that is just the layout for balconies and throw it on the side of a building and then draw the balconies in and draw in all your details. You could have a layout for fire escapes and have that, put that in perspective on the side of the building, and then just draw the extra parts that you need off of that. And it I cannot tell you how much fun and how easy this has made stuff. And we've drawn how many different things in 2 hours just playing around, and that's with me telling stories and being ridiculous the whole time. We did this one. Where's the rest of it? We did this one that we threw up together real quickly there. And again, you just throw the same textures on the side of these. You can loft them and cut them in and use them as templates for where things get higher and higher and lower and lower. We did this one, and we created these textures. We created these textures and then built these rooms and used them in 2 hours. Now, granted, some of these textures aren't necessarily the best because I was just showing you the techniques and not trying to make it look super cool. But you can see how quickly this can be used to make cool stuff. And you don't just have to use it with rectangles. You can put whatever you want in there. Real quickly, in the minute and a half that we have left, because that's going to happen. Just for fun, just to show you that it doesn't have to all be rectangles if you don't want it to be. We're going to come back down here to the tools. We'll get the rectangle tool, and that layer's not showing. That's why I can't draw it. And we'll throw in a few rectangles randomly here and there. We'll throw in, let's hold down Shift key and make some perfect circles, because Kyron watching, things need to be perfect. And then I'm going to Control C, Control V to copy and paste. And then I'm going to grab this corner and I'm going to hold Shift and Alt so that it grows the same from the center of that. And then I'm going to do it again. Oh, I need to make that one a little bit bigger because I don't like that. I don't like that cross point. Do it again. And then we are going to, we can do, we can click and drag to select those. And we selected all of those. And then I'm going to copy and paste. And we're going to pull that over here because that's cool. We're going to move this over there. And then we're going to paste again to get that section. And we're going to put that one over here like that. And then we're going to come back and we're going to erase some of these because that road goes over this building. This road goes under it. This one comes over here. This one goes under there, but over here. And it's going to go under this building. But this one's going to go over. No. It's going to go over that one, but under this building. And that gives it lots of interesting depth. This one's going to go right through that building. This one's going to go over it. And this one's going to go over that building. But you can see how you could make this crazy intricate, before you know it. And another thing I will do sometimes is come in and make like a layer below that so that I can work freely on this layer without having to worry about I don't have to worry about messing up that layer I already did if I want to do stuff that's going to be sitting behind this. Like if I want to draw in some complicated overlapping layers that I know are going to be below these other roads or metal channels or whatever they are, I can do this and know that it'll be behind it and I don't have to worry about when I go to erase things, I don't have to worry about accidentally erasing the buildings that were already there. And do this and that, and erase that and that and that, and that, and that. And we'll erase that and that. But you see, like, how quickly that can make cool patterns and stuff. And, if you wanted to, you could come in and pull in one of the patterns that you already did and stick it in this one and stick it in this one and stick it in this one. There's just so many cool things that you could do with this. And you could use custom brushes on some of these. Like I have a bunch of tools that I've made that have my bar texture on them. That's too small for you to see though. Let me enlarge the brush. Oh, it's set to 5. No wonder. 70. So like I can make circles like that have, concentric lines around them because I used my bar texture on that. And you can make custom brushes that do all kinds of things. Like I've got one that has cross hatching on it. So I can make it, and it's my own cross hatching that I drew. And I have it kind of stretched a little bit to make a really extreme version for this when like you really want like power lines coming out of something. But you could use that in there if you wanted to. And then you could save all this as a transparent PNG and use it as a texture and lay it out. This kind of stuff comes in really handy if you want to lay out a city or you want to lay out a floor plan for a bar or a office or whatever, and you want it to be the same every time, and then you can just sketch out where the floor is in perspective in the panel, and then bring this image in, drop it down, and the floor is in perspective, and it has marked out where the desks are, where the chairs are, where the windows are, and you can loft up from that with your lines in perspective and put everything in right. If I wanted to use this as a layout for the city, I could do that and move it to whatever angle I want in perspective, and then just draw lines down or up where I need to. Like if these were curved highways, I would know this one's higher than this one's lower than that one and stuff, and make changes to make it work, or at least use it as a layout so I know, okay, this is where that bridge would be, this is where the highways are going, this is where the buildings are. Maybe I still draw everything myself from that if I need to get things at the right layer level, but that'll give me the layout on the ground, give me a roadmap to work from where everything comes off of. And that's freaking priceless. This has saved me so much time. I have come to sticking these textures in the backgrounds of all kinds of sci-fi things, and it saved me so much time. I have made brick textures for the backgrounds, in buildings and stuff. I have made chain link fence textures and stuff that I can just drop in and bend and shape where I need them to make that chain link fence, and boom, that chain link fence is done. And it saves so much time. I cannot brag about it enough. So anyway, that's 2 hours of show that it was supposed to be an hour because we're having fun. And I'm glad you guys could come hang out with me today. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you to Phil and J-Man and everybody for having a chance just to even stop in and say hi if you couldn't stick around the whole time. Thank you, Sarah, for showing up when you did. Thank you, Katie and Kyron, for hanging out and chit-chatting with me. It's always a lot of fun. Hopefully, I will see you again, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll see you again on Tuesday this time. Hopefully, the office will be in a little bit better shape each time. But I got more furniture coming for the back wall. I'm going to get it decorated, get the comics hang up and stuff. I'm kind of wondering, what do y'all think I should do over here? Let me turn this a hair. I got this whole wall over here that I was thinking about maybe turning into like a weapons wall and hanging some of my swords and guns and things that are fun to use for reference and whatnot. Uh, I'm thinking about doing a Danny J. Quick, and over here on the back wall, I'm going to stick these black cabinets in the corner, and I got some little bookcases that are going to come up on either side so that I can put my comics and some of my action figures and stuff on the sides to decorate. I got a futon that's going to go in there for when this has to be a guest room again. But I was thinking about pulling Danny J. Quick and running some tracks across the back wall over there so that I can put my comics on the tracks instead, and would let me move them around more easily than the frames hung on nails on the wall that are kind of stuck in the pattern that I nailed them in. And this way I could move it around. I could change it. I could get to those books easier when I need a reference that's in that book. I don't want to pull it out of a glass frame, but if it's just bagged and board on the wall, I can get right to it and use it for a reference. And I'm kind of thinking I could probably get all 60 something books up there that I worked on, maybe. Heads of the Defeated Enemies, that's a good idea. I've honestly thought about making some sculpted heads of dragons. I'd really love to do the creature from the Black Lagoon because he's my favorite monster. You grow up with a name like Fish, the creature from the Black Lagoon is your favorite monster. And then I got the wall over yonder. I'm hoping to get this set up so that I can have another webcam over here or something so that I can do live drawing over here and unboxing videos and whatnot and unbox new comics that I get. And I thought about maybe a mural or something over there. I don't know. A car mural would be cool. I keep turning that light on. I don't want that light on. A car mural would be cool. Con Virgil would be, who knows, man. But that's a good idea. Anyway, I appreciate your ideas, and I will probably use some of them because, this is this is as much for y'all as it is for me. So anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate it so much. And I'm going to get out of here and go eat some breakfast because I still ain't ate yet. And anyway, thank y'all. Peace out. I got a lot of work to do. I got a book order to send in to Kablam and get everybody their call books. So anyway, peace out. I'll see y'all Tuesday. Lord willing, creek don't rise. Have fun. Be good to each other. Bye. Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again for School of Fish Art Stream. J-Man wants a Gatling gun on the end of his tail. Oh my goodness. J-Man says the tail's where you put all the heavy artillery. Yeah. Said he used to have a howitzer on the end of his tail.